Hey there boys, today we're going to be looking at 5 things that you probably didn't know about the game. And I really dug deep to find all this information, so this isn't just going to be your surface level stuff that I'm showing off to new players like well skating. No, we're going to dig in deep today. And these are going to be relatively in order, so the first ones I show you are going to be a little bit tame, but once we get towards the end, they're going to be some absolutely insane things that I don't think almost anybody knows about. Anyway, leave a comment with what you knew and what you didn't, and let's get on with the video. And starting things off, some perks in the game on crafted weapons when you enhance them actually get absolutely no benefit at all. To my knowledge, there are 2 perks like this, and they are Frenzy and Controlled Burst. According to their descriptions on the Destiny Data Compendium, it would appear that Controlled Burst is just bugged and should be giving an increased duration of the buff whenever you proc it, and that formerly Frenzy was more forgiving. Essentially it gave you more time to deal damage, so you had less time in between damages that you had to take or give to keep the perk going. There are also some perks which don't have any sort of increased effects from crafting simply because they're not available on any crafted weapons. A good example of this would be the Iron Banner perks. Another interesting fact is that Cold Steel, a perk only available on one sword in the game, apparently has an enhanced ability that gives it more ammo capacity and a higher magazine size. This is weird not only because it is not available on any crafted weapons, also obviously being a sword perk, it doesn't really make sense to increase its magazine size, does it? Next up, it's actually very feasible and realistic to apply Tractor Cannon to Oryx. For those of you who have done the Oryx fight before, you know that you would typically be using long-range weapons against the boss. However, there's actually nothing stopping you from just running up to his hand and unloading shotguns into him, including Tractor Cannon. So if you are one of those players who likes to do support and you've formerly done Divinity, you could actually increase your support further by using Tractor Cannon and running up to his hand and applying Tractor. Remember that Tractor gives a higher debuff than Divinity, and obviously the crit spot from Divinity isn't really helping against Oryx. In general, this is a common trend. Tractor Cannon can actually be applied to almost anything, including immune bosses. You can apply Tractor to them, and it will even help when using a mechanic to take down their shield, like the swords on Crota, or the skulls in Coil, or even the balls on the bosses in Dares. TLDR, Tractor is one of the most reliable weapons in the game, and it pretty much always works in every way that you want it to. And up next, we're going to be talking about some hidden mechanics behind the new perk Slice that dropped this season. However, very quickly, I did want to thank everybody who's been watching all the videos. The support has been absolutely insane. I actually just got my overview of 2023, and I have to say the numbers were absolutely crazy and it made me smile right there. So if you are enjoying the videos, I would definitely appreciate a subscription, and my absolute favorite thing is to read comments, so please leave a comment if you're going to do anything at all. But anyways, let's get back to the video. And next up, we're going to be talking about something pretty new, and this is the perk Slice. I think Slice is kind of a polarized thing. I think a few people sort of overhyped it as like this insane perk on all weapons, but I think that for most people the perk actually flew right under their radar. In reality, like many things, it is simply a good perk sometimes. In a broad sense, Slice is a great utility perk, and obviously weapons that can benefit from utility perks like trace rifles are going to do great with them, but something like a DPS weapon like Scatter Signal is not. I'm sorry Legolas, I love you, but that was just a terrible call. So the absolute biggest benefit to Slice that I see is going to be that it can apply to enemies that are immune. Pretty much every source of Sever in the game doesn't work on immune enemies, which is really unfortunate because Sever is actually super powerful against, well, enemies that you have to keep alive, which are typically going to be immune bosses. Slice isn't really good against an enemy that you could just kill, because instead of applying Slice, you could obviously just, well, kill them. And this is a general problem in the game with all forms of crowd control or stun. It's like, why would you freeze an enemy when you could just shoulder charge them for 700,000 damage and insta-kill them? And there are methods of doing this on all classes that aren't specific just to shoulder charge, of course. But getting back on topic to Slice, it really brings the power out in Sever, because Sever is very potent, obviously, cutting off a large amount of damage that an enemy can do. Especially to a boss, this can be very powerful. Slice would have been an absolutely insane perk to have on Day 1 Crota. Obviously, you would have it on Cenotaph Warlocks where they would slice the boss, and they could also spawn ammo using a Trace Rifle, which I would argue is probably the best weapon to have Slice on, since Trace Rifles typically benefit from having good utility anyway. And next up, we're going to be talking about a little bit of the more advanced movement tech. I think that most people are aware of well/shatter skating, where you basically just use your sword and a combination of either the well or the shatter dive, and you are able to catapult yourself very quickly. But that's not what we're looking at. We're going to be looking at two techs. These are considerably harder than just doing regular well skating or shatter skating, which is why I think that they're less known, but I still think that people who have no idea what they are would think that they're pretty cool. Starting things off, we'll go ahead and have a look at something called edge skating. Essentially, edge skating is doing a well skate, but on any roaming super, and this works on, well, just about any roaming super. While the normal well skate or shatter skate combo uses the heavy attack followed by a jump and then a super, edge skating is only a heavy attack and then a super. Unfortunately, this means that you don't quite get the height that you get in well skating, however you still do get the horizontal speed. Well, this isn't really useful because obviously it uses up the super and it just doesn't get the verticality that you need a lot of the times when well skating. It's still a great way to show off to your friends if you ever want to surprise them by basically well skating on a Titan or something like that. It's definitely a fun way to show off if you're able to master it, although it is quite a bit harder. And after that, I wanted to talk about ground skating. Ground skating is another pretty difficult thing to do. However, it lets you do a regular well skate or shatter skate, but from anywhere instead of requiring you to have a ledge. To do a ground skate, you're going to want to set yourself up to do the normal combo. However, instead of doing a heavy attack, you'll do a light attack instead, and you to jump and then quickly mash the combo as fast as you can. To put it in perspective for you, I've been well skating since we did it with Worldline 0 back when it was first discovered, and I still can only get this maybe 1/3 of the time. It's a very hard tech, and even for extremely experienced players, it's still very inconsistent, which is why you don't see it in most speedruns. That being said, if you do see it in the wild, they're probably using a macro, and you should definitely make fun of them for that. Or at least if they're trying to show off. And this last one is one I really think a lot of people aren't going to know. When you're using a Hive Sword from Crota's End or in the Dares of Eternity or anywhere in the game, the Hive Sword actually will do heavy attacks faster if you are pressing a movement input on your keyboard or your controller. I don't know why this is, but it's just something I randomly observed, and if you're somebody who's struggling to get the full 4-hit combo on Crota when you're a sword bearer, this might be the thing you are missing. So make sure you're pressing a movement key whenever you're using the Hive Sword on Crota's End, because there is really no reason not to be doing it. And while we're talking about the Hive Sword, I thought I would talk about general relic damage as well. Relic damage is determined by two things. The first being the light level of your gear, so if you are 1810, you're simply going to do more damage with the relic. Obviously there is a limit to light level advantages, so in 1600 content this will likely be less noticeable, for example between an 1805 and an 1810. However, in Crota's End specifically, this will very much so matter. The 1810 player will do more sword damage than an 1805 player. The other thing is going to be weapon damage buffs can actually be applied to relics, however it's a little bit of a specific setup. You essentially need to get 2 global weapon damage buffs applied to the person with the sword. The easiest of the two are typically Radiant and Lumina, however Well of Radiance also works. Llama D2 actually did a full video covering this, so if you do want to learn more about the general sword mechanics, I would highly recommend his video and I'll have it linked in the description below. And that's going to do it for the video. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you can catch the next one.